All right, folks. Hello and welcome to this tornado outbreak short summary. A definite old one here. This one happened in 1956 on April 2nd through the 3rd of, 1956. First of all, is that thankfully I was able to get plenty of data, which is a little surprising to me, especially because it's not really until like the 70s and 80s kind of that you start to see some really, really good documentation. So, this going all the way back to 1956 is indeed a pleasant surprise to see. So, we would have in the regions affected, that being mostly Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, temperatures around the high 50s with dew points around the high 70s, temperatures in the high 70s, and dew points in the low 50s. I mix up 5 and 7 for no reason in my head. And in some cases, along the shore of Lake Michigan and Michigan South, dew points would exceed 60 degrees Fahrenheit. All temperatures are in Fahrenheit because I'm American. Yes. A low front, which is seen here by this dot around to the, what is that, to the west of Topeka, I believe, or Kansas City, west of Kansas City, right there, moves its way from, Kansas, all the way up into, I almost combined Minnesota and Wisconsin to create Wisconsin. Minnesota and Wisconsin, with the fronts obviously moving along with it. The stationary front seen here becoming a warm front and a cold front, and we had a dry line in front of this cold front here. The jet stream, thousands of feet up in the air, mind you, reached 155 miles per hour, which did indeed help this thing traverse so much ground pretty quickly. Note that we do indeed have a little red triangle. That's a rectangle, little red rectangle there. This was issued by the NSSFC, which would become the NWSSPC. This stands for the National Severe Storms Forecast Center. They issued a tornado forecast at 1:16 Central Daylight Time, which was actually well in advance of any tornadoes that happened. Speaking of tornadoes, 47 of them were confirmed to have happened from this event, and a total of 6 of them were deemed to be violent. That is, although technically you can indeed have a percentage of a tornado be violent, there's a certain percent that's not violent, certain percent that it is. For whole numbers' sake, that is 13%, rounded up from 12.7, I believe, that are violent out of our 47. There would be 38 confirmed direct deaths from this event and at least $125,000 worth in damage. Obviously, 47 tornadoes produced more than this. However, only one of them had a monetary amount done, described. So that's why I have that there, just letting everyone know here. So let's jump right in. I think I've overstayed here. Our first notable went from the northeast of Kildare or Kildare. It better be Kildare, Oklahoma, to Gridley, Kansas. This F4 had a track of approximately 174 kilometers and also reaching in at close to 800 meters wide, which is around, 780 yards? I'm not good on the meters to yards conversion, but I can do kilometers to miles, kind of. This tornado killed 2 and injured 9. And before anything, note that this tornado consisted of at least 2 tornadoes, both of them being rated as F4. In fact, the first one purportedly reached near F5 intensity. That's a quote from the Wikipedia section about this outbreak quickly, where one home would be swept at this near F5 intensity and many trees would be debarked as well. The second is known to have formed to the southwest of Toronto. No, we are not in Canada. We are still in Oklahoma, just before the Oklahoma Kansas border, if I'm not mistaken, which is where the 2 deaths and 3 of their injuries would occur. Something very notable to me, at least, while seemingly not notable at first, was that a plastic belt was found embedded into a broken tree. Whether this tree was already broken before the belt was embedded is unknown, wasn't said. However, no matter how hard that belt is, no matter what kind of wood, softwood, hardwood, whether that thing is birch, whether that thing is a 200-year old oak, is impressive for a belt to be embedded into a tree. You have to get through the bark, which is easy enough for a birch tree, but definitely not for an oak tree. If you ever tried to break the bark off a maple tree that there's already a section not broken off of, it's like near impossible. So that's pretty impressive. Our second notable is the one that had the monetary dollar and damage amount. This F4 went from the southwest of Narcissa, Oklahoma, to the southeast of Carterville, Missouri. This F4 had a track of 67.3 kilometers long, reaching in at approximately 153 meters wide, which is. I'm going to mess this up so bad, I'm not even going to try. Psych. I'm sorry, I'm not going to try. 59 people were injured, and this tornado caused at least $125,000 worth in damage. This tornado formed essentially right at midnight, almost essentially right in Miami, not Florida, Oklahoma, right in Miami, Oklahoma, and also struck Quapaw, Oklahoma. It's right after midnight. In fact, in Miami alone, again, not Florida, 46 of their injuries would occur and 56 homes would be affected in Miami in some way, shape, or form. This tornado continued into Baxter Springs, Kansas, affecting at least 27 homes and also completely destroying a baseball grandstands. The damage on the field is unknown, so therefore I can presume quite funnily that the grandstands were completely obliterated and the field is picture perfect, which is kind of funny, kind of not. Would rather have the grandstands there. This tornado continued on, as you can imagine, into Missouri, hitting Webb City, where it damaged numerous homes and businesses. However, this F4 would dissipate around just before striking the community of Joplin. So thankfully, Joplin was spared on this day. Our third notable doesn't have a whole lot of information on it, as this tornado didn't really do or have a long path. The southwest of Berlin, not Germany, to the northwest of Omro, Wisconsin F4 had a path 18.5 kilometers long, reaching in around 400 meters wide, which is around 360 yards, I think, causing 7 deaths and 50 injuries. This tornado would reportedly destroy a factory and approximately 20 homes, with lighter items, say something like a photograph, or like a small towel, what have you, were found 121 kilometers away from Berlin. Again, not Germany. Berlin, Wisconsin to Berlin, Germany is at least more than 121 kilometers, so that would be very impressive. But no. Note that due to the 7 deaths, this makes this tornado Wisconsin's 4th deadliest tornado in its history. Now we finally have some pictures here. It's been, I know, no pictures until now. This is actually part 4A, and you'll see what I mean at the very end here. The F4 of our 4th notable here went from Saugatuck to Holland, Michigan, having a track around 14 kilometers wide and reaching in at around 91 meters wide, which is approximately 100 yards wide, I think, causing thankfully 0 deaths but injuring 7. This tornado apparently toppled the very historic Saugatuck Lighthouse and would destroy a few tens of homes before dissipating. Some would receive just minor damage, and then some, as you can see here, completely gone. Pardon me. We do manage to have photos of these tornadoes, thankfully, and the most important part here is that this is actually listed officially as one tornado with our next notable, which is why this is part 4A and why this next part is part 4B. The Friesland to Trufant, Michigan F5, a surprisingly well documented tornado for the time. Trekking 77 kilometers and reaching a width of approximately 370 meters wide. That's, again, I'm bad at the conversion, 400 yards wide. This tornado killed 17 and injured 340 people. According to multiple eyewitness accounts, this was at first mistook for a fire by many, as the condensation funnel was not quite there. However, later on, this tornado was widely photographed and even videoed. These bottom right 3 photos here are actually stills from a video, which is very impressive. Many homes would be destroyed in the Grand Rapids suburbs. This would be the suburbs to the south of Grand Rapids specifically. And this tornado would also completely obliterate Finecroft Trailer Park. As we can see in our top middle photograph here, not only do we have numbers indicating where houses should be, but we can see the debris from them is very extensively windrowed. Windrowing is a term that you will not find when Googling, as far as I'm aware. Last time I checked, I did not find any helpful information, so I had to go digging. Windrowing is what happens when you have debris shaped almost into a nice little curve, if you will, from where it originated at. It looks like someone just like took their hand through like mud or sand per se and just like flattened it out. And although you couldn't see it with sand, you could see it with mud. You could see like everything, like a line with the direction that it was thrown in. So that's what windrowing is. Thankfully, we have more pictures of our 5th notable, the Lexington, Tennessee F4. This F4 pathed just under 18 kilometers and reached in at approximately 91 meters wide, causing 3 deaths. This tornado destroyed 46 homes and 2 businesses, damaged 250 homes, 20 businesses, and a high school. This high school is pictured down here in the bottom right. The most damage I can see is to the roof, but other than that, it's there. Unfortunately, not too much information on it. Our 6th, and this is our last notable here, if I'm not mistaken, the northwest of Onekama, I hope I pronounced that right. I didn't know the Hawaiians made it into Michigan, to East Sutton's Bay, Michigan F4. This tornado pathed 81 kilometers and had a width of approximately 400 meters wide, causing anywhere from 1 to 2 deaths. I saw separate sources say both, and 25 injuries. That is agreed on. With this pretty long track, it is possible this tornado was a family, meaning more than one tornado. However, we do know that if there were numerous tornadoes, they destroyed 13 homes, at least 24 barns, and then past this affected very rural areas near the end of its life. Notably, this tornado was actually rated F3 by Dr. Grazoulis, a tornadoologist. Presumably, and kind of rightfully so, based on the structural integrity of the barns that were destroyed. Now, taking a look specifically on the shores of Lake Michigan, we see a fairly concentrated amount of quite intense tornadoes. We have two F4s, an F5, and an F3. Also, this is in April. Michigan, granted, Michigan isn't really known for tornadoes, but it is rare for the upper Midwest, sorry, for the upper Midwest to see tornadoes in April. That's not normal per se, but it still can happen as long as conditions are right, because that's how storms form. The videos taken of our F5 was actually some of the first evidence of suction vortices. And this F5, the same one that we mentioned, that I talked about, is the last F5 or EF5 in Michigan to date, which is kind of a doozy because Michigan saw the Beecher F5 just in 1953, and this is 1956, only 3 years after. That's kind of wild for two of the highest echelon tornadoes in your state, and then none ever again. So far, I hope it stays that way, but you never know. Again, I will go on and on about just how well documented this event is, especially for the time. We're not even a decade into most tornadoes in every outbreak being documented. Because at the time, granted, urbanization has indeed taken hold, but still, tornadoes would only be documented if anything, if they did anything. With even now, you will have a tornado in an outbreak rated FU, which does not stand for FU. It stands for Fujita Unknown. They don't know the rating of the tornado because it blew down some corn stalks, which is really easy to do. So, who knows if it was EF0 or an EF5? Who knows? And if it only treks through a cornfield, you're going to have a hell of a time trying to rate the sucker. So, there's that. But anyways, again, a very, very well documented event for the time. With that, folks, that is all that I have on my ramblings of this event that happened in 1956. I hope that you all learned something from this video as much as I did while researching it. And I hope to see you all in the next one. I do apologize for the such long lengths in between videos. Back in school, now I have two things to focus on, and they're both like just back to back to back. Like my only day that I really have nothing happening is Tuesday. So, and I have not very much time. So, again, I'll see you guys in the next one, and I thank you all so much for watching.